All right, welcome in. As you can tell, the background changed. I have made it to California. They say that as soon as it gets scenic when you're looking out the play window, then you know that you are in the state of California. That's true. I'm going to share a video with you in a little bit. But first, we've got a Brock Purdy contract update. This is from Mike Garafolo talking on the NFL Network today. Coach Yak was able to transcribe it for us. This is good food for thought because I'm going to bust out the calculator here in a second, and we're going to talk about potential Brock Purdy numbers. But Garafolo on Brock Purdy's pending contract extension, quote, I don't see this getting done until the 49ers and Brock Purdy agree on a number that is close to Dak Prescott. Not all the way there, but close to Dak Prescott and Purdy saying, okay, that's fair. But it also still gives the team and John Lynch the opportunity to do things elsewhere, end quote. And then we had this discussion, once you watch the rest of the clip on NFL Network, and you don't have to watch it since I'm going to talk about it right now. There was a discussion about the percentage of the salary cap that Brock Purdy's APY, average per year, will eventually take. And if you go back and you look at deals here over the course of the past several seasons, they've generally fallen between about 20.8% and 25% of the existing salary cap. Now, remember, this is key, and I think that this obviously works in Brock Purdy's favor when you consider the percentage of the salary cap argument. The salary cap has risen 24.1% in just 2 years. We had a 13% increase from 2023 to 2004. We had another 9.2 or 9.38% increase from 2024 to 2025, to the point where the cap is now $279.2 million. I mean, I still remember when it was in the hundreds. Wasn't that long ago, where around 2021, 2022, it crossed over into the 200s. Then we were up at 255.4, and we went from 255.4 to 279.2. So if percentage of the salary cap has been used as a negotiating tool for a lot of these quarterbacks who have recently signed, then we can apply that same scale with a $279.2 million cap to a potential contract for Brock Purdy, and we can start to figure out where the APY range will be. So, for example, at 21%, so all these deals, like I've looked through a lot of these deals, it's somewhere between 28.8% to about 24 to 25% of the cap. So let's start at 21% of a $279.2 million cap. Drum roll, please. Those of you who have calculators, you can go ahead and do this yourselves, but we're going to go 279.2 times, what are we doing? 21% times 0.21. Okay, here you go. Do you see this? That's 58.6 million APY. Would be 21% of the cap. You'd be looking at, I think, deals like Tua's, Jared Goff's might have been around that when they signed their deals in 2024. It added up to 53 million, but the cap was lower. So 53 million with salary cap inflation would move something up to about $58 million. Now, you can go to the other end of the extreme and look at Joe Burrow's contract. Burrow signed for 55 in 2023 when the cap was at $224.8 million. So Burrow's was crazy. And so when Garafolo was talking about this right now on NFL Network, I was like, okay, what's going to be the upper end of the spectrum? And I could say 200. So Burrow's here. Let's do that. 55 million per year, and he signed in 2023. So let's go 224.8 million. So that's 24.5% of the cap. That's a big deal for Joe Burrow. So say now with Joe Burrow's contract with salary cap inflation would be 279.2 times 0.245. $68.4 million per year. So that's crazy, right? And Joe Burrow, I think that he has established himself as one of the very best in the game. Makes sense that he would sign a deal worth 55 million annually 2 years ago when the cap was at 224.8. But just the range that they were talking about on NFL Network, and we credit Coach Yak for discovering this, the range that they were talking about, if you applied that to the $279.2 million salary cap, would it be between 58 and 68 million APY for Brock Purdy. So one more time, just to see what Garofalo is saying here. And I think the basis of this is in the percentage of the salary cap. Garofalo says, I don't see this getting done until the 49ers and Brock Purdy agree on a number that is close to Dak Prescott's, and that's 60 million a year. Not all the way there, but close to Dak Prescott, and Purdy saying that's fair. But it also still gives the team and John Lynch the opportunity to do things elsewhere. This is the point where I will back up and I will emphasize that guarantees matter a whole lot. But on the surface, APY is going to matter to players. It's going to matter to agents, and it's definitely going to matter to you guys, the viewers, because I know I've seen you guys arguing over APY time and time again in the comment section of these shows. And I think that when this deal is delivered, then people are going to be saying, okay, I was right on the APY. They're probably not going to be talking as much about the fully guaranteed money, although those of us who are contract nerds are going to be a little bit more plugged into the guaranteed money. And we're going to say, see, I told you it was going to be over 140 million fully guaranteed, or I told you that it was going to be less than 130 million. Wherever this ends up, it's going to be lucrative. The 49ers have obviously had to budget for it. San Francisco is moving from the rookie quarterback era to the paid quarterback era. And they've got to make the roster more efficient regardless, because they weren't a good football team last year. I wrote my Brock Purdy contract proposal when I was sitting up here in the Sierra Nevada just a couple months ago. Time has flown by really quickly, but we should open it up on the San Francisco Standard to revisit it, because it does fall within the range that they were just talking about on NFL Network. The headline of this thing, I mean, I think it was very accurate. It was, the $60 million man. Is that the case? Brock Purdy's 49ers contract, running the numbers on Brock Purdy's 49ers contract. And, one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize was what I was talking about, where the guarantees and the structure. I mean, the structure is going to be everything. There had been, Mike and I were talking about it, the first couple 49ers contracts of this free agency cycle that it came out, Jason Pinnock and Richie Grant's contracts. Those are both safeties who are on one-year deals and weren't big deals. The 49ers did not backload those deals the way that they had backloaded deals in the past. And we were wondering if they were just trying to completely clear future years cap space, given the hits that they were taking with Deebo Samuel's contract, given the dead money hit that was coming in this year. Obviously, some of the other releases and some of the other non-signings that the 49ers let happen. A lot of the cap money from the future was hitting here in 2025. And we were wondering, are they just trying to clear the books in the future and, maybe even try to front load some stuff this year if they're trying to keep some stuff open for other expenses in 2025 and beyond. But today we got DeMarcus Robinson's contract, and the 49ers new wide receiver, played for the Rams last year, entering year 10. And DeMarcus's deal is actually backloaded. It is a staggered structure, just like the projection that I had for Brock Purdy that I made way back. When was the date on this sucker? This was January 15th. So it's already over 2 months ago that we made this Brock Purdy contract projection. Why don't I make this bigger up on the screen so that we can explain what to expect in this deal? So this is the look at a deal that would be worth $61 million annually. I was just using the Dak Prescott number, going slightly above it. I'm not sure where on the range this Brock Purdy deal is going to fall, but if the 49ers were to do something like this, they would be able to fit it under the salary cap, because they would use the DeMarcus Robinson structure, the Brandon Aiyuk structure, the Deebo Samuel structure, the George Kittle structure. Basically, every single big contract that the 49ers have executed under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch has looked something like this. They have tried to surf the wave of the rising salary cap. Notice that this projection has Purdy at $61 million per year, but the cap hit for 2025 is only $15 million per year. That's the gist of what I want you to remember. They're keeping the early cap hits at 15, 23, and 29.3 million per year. Before, yes, they skyrocket, but the cap is going to be much higher in 2028 because it's risen 24% in just 2 years. So just imagine how much it's going to rise moving forward past that. But on top of that, the 49ers would have restructure ability with this contract once you hit 2028. The only guaranteed portions of this deal are shaded in color. So, and one of the option bonuses down here, let's see, 70 plus 40 plus 30. So everything that is shaded is guaranteed money in this proposed contract. So once you got to the really high base salary in 2028, that's when you can renegotiate, create another option bonus, and then spread it out against the salary cap. You amortize it, you surf that wave. It's that staggered structure. The 49ers have absolutely loved using this structure because the salary cap has been rising, and I would anticipate that they do something similar for Brock Purdy. Listen, I mean, this is a situation where Brock Purdy has obviously delivered at an extremely high level in his short amount of time in the National Football League. We can go back to this chart, which I showed the other day. This is quarterback EPA through the first 40 games of a QB's career. Further to the right, further up is where you want to be. Here's Brock Purdy in the upper right. He's better than where Peyton Manning was. Tony Romo, Lamar Jackson. I mean, the only hotter start to a career came from Patrick Mahomes. So this is what you're dealing with Brock Purdy. He's going to earn whatever he ends up getting this offseason. I think that it's important to him to be there for OTAs, and I think it should be important for the 49ers to get Brock Purdy in there by OTAs. That's in about 2 months, maybe a little bit less than 2 months at this point. So I think go time as far as this contract goes and overdrive for negotiations should be about right now, because the 49ers have now finished free agency. Of course, they might still sign players, but they've gone through the primary waves of free agency. They have actually executed 12 contracts, which is the fourth most in the league. People might be surprised, but they've spent the fewest money per deal per APY out of any team in the league. So what the 49ers have done, I think it's like 2.3 million APY has been their average contract so far in free agency. But what they've done is they've essentially tried to manufacture an extension of the NFL draft through free agency. They're trying to make the team younger. They're trying to pick up players with upside on cost-controlled deals. They've been doing a lot of resetting and financial housekeeping so they can get ready to pay 3 players. One of them is obviously Brock Purdy. Another one of them is George Kittle. And then maybe, just maybe, Fred Warner gets an extension this offseason as well, although that might still be more likely to happen next offseason since Fred Warner still has 2 years left on his contract. But all of the deck chairs have been arranged for the 49ers now to start pursuing these big-ticket financial items. If you go and you take a look at the 49ers roster, which we're about to do in this deep dive, you will see where the holes are, where the new signees are. The new signees are shaded in teal. The holes I have shaded in dark red. And you also see where the foundational pillars, the centerpieces are. I've shaded those in yellow. So the 49ers are at a point now where all focus is going to shift toward filling the holes of this roster with the cost-controlled youth in the NFL draft. That is the 49ers spot right now. Free agency is behind them. You're going to have fill-in signings here and there. If I was running this, and you guys already know my opinion here, I would try to bring in a veteran defensive tackle on a friendly price, somebody like Calais Campbell who could play as a tutor for the 49ers for some of the younger players. But I get the feeling they're not going to do that. I think they're going to go full Rams mode, as I wrote this past week up on the Standard. I think they're going to try to flood this with rookies. I think they believe in how strong of a defensive tackle class this is. And they also believe in the analytics of this whole situation. They believe in their R&D department, but they also believe in adding as much cost-controlled youth as possible. But as we go through this roster, why don't we start along the defense? I'm going to zoom in. There you go. You can see the defensive end and the defensive tackle positions. Again, the spots where I thought that there are glaring roster holes right now, I have shaded in red. And when you go up and down the depth chart / roster, the offense has got its starting lineup essentially set. I'm not saying that it's impossible to upgrade the offense. Of course, you can upgrade at center if you find somebody. Maybe Matt Hennessy beats out Jake Brendel, but to me, that was a weak position for the 49ers last year. We'll see what Ben Barch can do at left guard, but I think he's in the driver's seat early on for that position. And a lot of people are talking about Colton McKivitz being replaced. Well, it's going to be easier said than done because you might have to pick a tackle very high to replace Colton McKivitz. So maybe it's more realistic for the 49ers to fill in some tackle depth in the draft. Long story short is the starting lineup of that offense is generally in place. That's going to be the more expensive part of this 49ers team, and it's probably going to have to be the locomotive that pulls the train. Scroll down to the defense. This is where you've got the major holes to fill. You see the red at the 3 technique defensive tackle. You see the red at the other defensive tackle position. You see the red at one of the linebacker positions. I think they still need to add another body there, although they have re-signed some players. And then one thing that you don't see is red in the secondary. Here, this right here is significant to me. Put the camera back on. One of the underrated accomplishments of free agency for the 49ers was the fact that they were able to add enough promising bodies in the secondary, especially at one of the cornerback positions with Trey Brown coming out of the Seattle Seahawks. They're able to add enough through free agency, which was all cost controlled, to make cornerback and safety a position of non-glaring need entering free agency. So a couple weeks ago, the 49ers did not have any of the players here who are highlighted in teal. They didn't have Trey Tomlinson. They didn't have Trey Brown. They didn't have Saran Neal, who's a special teams ace. They didn't have Richie Grant. They didn't have Jason Pinnock. All of these guys who are shaded in teal have been added over the course of the past couple weeks. Now, why is this significant? Well, back when this was bare bones, we weren't really sure how the 49ers were going to make up for the loss of Charvarius Ward. How were the 49ers going to make up for some of the cornerback depth that they had lost over the course of this past season? And they went out, and I think that the best signing they made, this is my opinion, was Trey Brown. Trey Brown was the NFL's top-graded press coverage corner in 2023 for the Seattle Seahawks. They were able to get him at a value deal because he hurt his ankle in 2024. But at Trey Brown, and I told you guys the day that the 49ers signed him, he is the favorite to start for this team at the 3rd cornerback position. I don't care if you list this as left cornerback, right cornerback, nickel back. I think that Deommodore Lenoir is so versatile, and Renardo Green has been traded to be versatile. I think that Trey Brown has a lot of potential versatility. I think you just toss the positional cornerback stuff out the window. In fact, I may even rename this on this chart, and I may just have Trey Brown as cornerback 3. But I think he is in the lead for that 3rd cornerback spot, which is important when you run out of nickel. Then they signed 2 safeties, Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock, both of whom I think are going to challenge, especially Jason Pinnock is going to challenge Jair Brown. I think Malik Mustafa is obviously safe. 49ers would love if Malik earned the yellow shading this year as a foundational pillar of this roster. But they needed safety depth, and they needed another potential starter at corner, plus corner depth. And Saran Neal can be a nickel cornerback. I think he hasn't played much on the outside, but he's more of a special teams guy. But they found all of those things at a very cost-controlled rate during free agency. So what that has done is that it's opened their focus coming up here in the NFL draft on the front 7. So zoom in again on this. The front 7 is now where they can target all of their fire once late April hits in this NFL draft. And they've got the most picks in the entire league. The defensive tackle class is the most loaded that I've seen since I started covering this team in 2017. There's also some good defensive ends, but I think that the main pressure point for the 49ers on this roster right now is defensive tackle. I don't see a starting caliber defensive tackle on this roster. They re-signed Kevin Givens. They got him at the 4-year qualifying player offer. Today I reported that, by the way. That's a mid-level exception. You could use a couple of those, but they used theirs on Kevin Givens. It's the only players who are eligible for the 4-year qualifying player offer are guys who have been with the team for at least 4 seasons straight. And Givens has been around since 2019 when he joined the 49ers as a UDFA. And you could pay him $2.3 million, but his cap hit is only about $1.1 or $1.2 million. It's like a mid-level exception. You see some of that stuff happen in the NBA. So the 49ers have good value with Kevin Givens, but he's a rotational defensive lineman. Trusted agent, that's great. Rotational defensive lineman. Kalia Davis, I mean, he still has to prove that he belongs consistently at this level. I thought Evan Anderson had a nice year last year, but he still is going to have to prove in year 2 that he belongs at this level. And none of these guys have proven that they're starting caliber players. Even though Jordan Elliott has been around the league a little bit longer, I don't think that he has shown that he's particularly a starting caliber player. In fact, if the 49ers are able to get big-time help through the draft at defensive tackle, which remains to be determined, but if they are able to, it wouldn't surprise me if Jordan Elliott went the way of Leonard Floyd and Malik Collins. He was one of the veteran free agents who the 49ers added last offseason. Collins was a trade from Houston, but still one of the veterans that they added. And San Francisco basically decided that we want fresh blood. I know Jordan Elliott's a little bit younger, and I think that's why he's hung around the roster for now. And I think they're waiting to see and he's also more of a run defense specialist than the pass rusher, but I think they're waiting to see what they are able to unearth in this NFL draft. And if they like what they get, then you could see even more cuts along the defensive line. But right now they've got a lot to fill. At least 2 defensive tackle spots. I don't know if they can get 2 starters out of the draft, but if you're the 49ers, you hope you can get 1 ready-made starter and 1 defensive tackle who can work his way into a starting spot eventually, or at least work his way into a productive rotation spot. And then, of course, you would have to rely on one of these guys to fill in. Or maybe if Calais Campbell is still available, maybe he doesn't want to sign until the start of training camp. If somebody like Calais Campbell is still available and say the 49ers get Mason Graham, just use this for argument's sake. Say that they draft Mason Graham, who a lot of people like, out of Michigan. He's going to be in this spot. All of a sudden, you only have 1 defensive tackle position left to fill. In that case, if you don't have anybody else drafted, if you've had other players that you got, other needs you got to fill, maybe you could then sign Calais Campbell right before the regular season if he's still available, and then he could tutor this group. Campbell might be waiting for the best opportunity where he thinks he's going to best fit. And I get it. He's 38 years old, but he's still playing high-level football. I mean, this is a future Hall of Famer. He's good against the run. The reason that I love the whole veteran tutor blueprint is because I was around this 49ers team when Richard Sherman came into the building in 2018, and he was still recovering from the Achilles at the time, and a lot of people doubted that signing. I still vividly remember Richard on the sideline recovering from the Achilles during OTAs. He was more animated and more involved than the coaches were. I mean, and you cannot convince me that Richard Sherman's presence in that locker room and on that practice field, not only as a player, but as a mentor and like a coach on the field, you cannot convince me that wasn't a huge part of the 49ers mentality shift on defense when they turned into one of the league's best units in 2019. So I saw the benefit of having a future Hall of Famer working with young guys with a front row seat. And I got to talk to Richard about it. And to me, that left the mark on how I cover the NFL. I understood the locker room dynamics. They called him Uncle Sherm. They still call him Uncle Sherm. I almost feel I don't think there's any crossover left in the 49ers secondary with teammates of Richard Sherman. Go back to his final year was 2020. I look in the secondary, none of those guys. I mean, Lenore came in 21, so he didn't overlap with him. Renardo came last year. Trey Brown was obviously in Seattle. He didn't overlap with Sherman there. Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa. These are all younger players. Nobody overlapped with Richard Sherman, but his legacy in that room has carried over. He helped establish a culture, and good cultures trickle down generation to generation. Anyway, long story short, if I'm the 49ers, I don't mind somebody like Calais Campbell in the room. I think Miami was really happy with him last year. But that, again, given the 49ers strategy, they're just trying to fill this up with as many rookies as possible. That may not be something that the 49ers turn to, if it's possible, until much closer to the regular season, once they see what the draft does net them. For now, I've got Yetur Gross-Matos as one of the starting defensive ends. I think he's got a lot of potential. This is still a young player for the 49ers, Yetur Gross-Matos. He's not a guy on the wrong side of 30 years old. He's 27 years old. So Malik Collins was going to be on the wrong side of 30. Leonard Floyd already was on the wrong side of 30. Huge part of the reason why neither of those two guys is around anymore. I mean, they weren't good against the run, and they had good years pass rushing, but the 49ers looking to modernize. Somebody like Yetur Gross-Matos, he is that tier younger, right? And he can also play outside and inside, but I think that at his peak last year, the 49ers started to see some of his potential. Yetur did not play in a 4-3 when he was with Carolina. He was playing 3-4 outside linebacker, so he was in a totally different front with the 49ers. Hurt his knee during training camp, but once he finally got some snaps under his belt in the new front, you saw it in that game against the Chicago Bears. He was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. What was it, 3 sacks for Yetur Gross-Matos? And he also sets a decent edge against the run. He is one of the players who I thought, once he was healthy, did some good stuff opposite Nick Bosa last year. The 49ers obviously were not good as a whole. That's why the defense really struggled. One of the reasons why it struggled last year. They were not good as a whole on the defensive line, but Yetur is one of the players with true upside. And I think that he can lock down one of the starting defensive end spots, especially if the 49ers draft. Even somebody like Mike Green, if they take Mike Green, it might take him a little while to get integrated into the rotation to the point where you're trusting him as a starter. So you've got to find the right mix and match between guys that you already have, veterans on the team who are still ascending players, and the rookies who you draft. And you don't know exactly who you're going to draft. I mean, the draft is like a game. It's going to be unpredictable, right? We don't know exactly what play the 49ers are going to call on any given down during the NFL draft. We don't know who's going to be available at number 11. We don't know if they're going to execute any trades, up, down, whatever. We don't know who's going to be available in the second round, third round, fourth round. It's less predictable than the basketball tournament that's happening right now, March Madness. And because of that, I think that it's absolutely imperative for the 49ers to maintain as much flexibility as they possibly can entering this 2025 NFL draft. And when you do look at the defensive side of the ball, where the holes are, I think that they've positioned themselves for that flexibility mainly through the development of the secondary in free agency. Now, there are holes on the offensive side of the ball as well. I think they, adding another receiver. We were about to talk about Brandon Aiyuk before we decided to pivot and talk about Brock Purdy. Maybe we talk a little bit more about Brandon Aiyuk tomorrow. They're going to head up to ski tomorrow, so you're going to get some ski content. We're going to do some stuff from the chairlift tomorrow. That's always fun. But I think, Demarcus Robinson, good pickup for San Francisco. Juwan Jennings was awesome last year. Ricky Pearsall developed into that one of those top 3 spots by the end of the season. He was targeted 18 times over the course of the final 2 weeks. But let's be honest, this offense is better with Brandon Aiyuk performing, much better with Brandon Aiyuk performing. They have this route tree win rate concept that has been floating around online. One of those fantasy data sites has it. This was Aiyuk last year. This wasn't the 2023 season when he was awesome. This was last year. I mean, this is still an 89th percentile slant separator, a 97th percentile crosser separator, a 100th percentile hitch separator. So he runs that hitch very good. 99th percentile on the in breakers and the out breaking routes, and 87th percentile on the posts. Last year, Aiyuk wasn't good on the go pattern separation, and he wasn't good on the corner pattern separation. I don't know if the sample size was too small, but what he's doing on a lot of these routes, separation-wise, was still really good, despite the fact that as a whole, he played a whole lot worse than 2023. He had trouble catching the football last year, for one. I don't think that his top-end speed last year was as great, but he's still separating. And when Brandon Aiyuk was no longer able to go for the 49ers after he tore his ACL, that combined with the Christian McCaffrey injury just completely broke the 49ers' ability to separate as a team. They ended up number 32 in average separation at the time of catch or incompletion. And Brock Purdy, who had been awesome against both man and zone coverage in 2023. Look at this. Purdy was in the very upper right. So you got x-axis is zone defense and y-axis is man defense. So Purdy's dot was way up here in 2023. In 2024, he stayed really good against zone, but his dot dropped down here below Matthew Stafford's. And it's because his receivers weren't able to get open. And it traced back to Brandon Aiyuk. So anyway, as we're going through a roster deep dive and we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk and his position on this 49ers team, and I know that there's some level of limbo right now because the 49ers aren't saying no to trade interest. The thing is, he's probably not going to command what the 49ers would need on the trade market, if anything, because of the severe injury. And if we think it through, if Aiyuk is able to come back and be just 80 to 90% of his former self, and I know that's a big if, but if he's able to do that, that helps the separation issue that the 49ers had immensely. Now, because it is a huge if, I think that you still need to add a receiver. I don't think the 49ers are done yet. You know, we talked about Cooper Kupp. That was way too high of a price point for a receiver in decline. So the NFL draft is your natural next step. Where do they pick a receiver? I don't know. I think the defense, if I'm running the team, is the initial focus, but I still feel a little uneasy at wide receiver, especially given the status of Aiyuk. Obviously, running back, we think they're going to add another body as well. One place that they're set, though, is quarterback. Purdy, Mac Jones, Tanner Mordecai. If you guys want some Mac Jones content tomorrow, give me a thumbs up in the comment section, and we'll go for it at that spot. From the Sierra Nevada, where it is absolutely stunning. California right now in the foothills looks like one of those Windows screensavers. I mean, it's green. The rain and the snow has fallen and the sun has shined. And this right here is not going to be green. This is going to be a look at the Sierra Nevada. So this is where, here, I got to get this up on the screen for you guys, though. You know that you have made it to California when the barren desert ends and the truly spectacular scenery begins. That's how you know that California is underneath you as you fly over the Sierra Nevada. I was about to land in Fresno and I saw this outside the left window and I said, I've got to take a video. So there was feet and feet of snow that just pelted California over the course of March. The last time I was in the state, I was out of the state for about a month. So the last time I was in the state in February, there was not nearly this much snow. And they call it a March miracle in California when you get this much snow in the Sierra Nevada, because that also means water for the Central Valley. But it's absolutely spectacular. Yes, this is the home state of the 49ers. I mean, you don't get this anywhere else in the U.S. Even the Rockies, they don't look like this. I mean, the Sierra Nevada is just dramatic, and it was awesome to see that outside of the plane window. Just wait. I could show you guys some more scenery here. This is from the 559. Those of you in the 559, you can raise your hand in the chat section. I'm sure that there are plenty of you. As I was driving up to Shaver Lake, I was going through your territory. I've got one more video for you guys to play in that regard. And then we'll answer some of your 49ers questions here as we've gone through the entire 49ers roster as we set it up for the NFL draft. Those of you just joining, we were talking about Brock Purdy at the start of the show. A key Brock Purdy contract variable, percentage of the cap, which is going to put the range, if we're going to follow recent quarterback deals, because the cap has increased 24% over the course of the past 2 seasons. It's going to put the Brock Purdy range somewhere between 58 and 68 million per year. And yeah, I don't think the upper end of that's going to happen. Dak Prescott's at 60 million per year, but cap inflation is going to lead to contract inflation. You've seen contract inflation at other positions. It's been massive at other positions. At wide receiver, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins being the most recent ones, but edge rusher with Myles Garrett up to 40 million per year. It has been a huge jump at all those positions. So you would expect at least some sort of jump at quarterback, given the fact that the salary cap has spiked as much as it did. That being said, the Josh Allen contract I've been talking about that. I think it restored some sanity to the process because it wasn't an APY race. He did sign his deal under different conditions than somebody like Brock Purdy. Still many years left on Josh Allen's deal. So you look at, I mean, I guess every quarterback has got ultimate leverage. If they're really good at any point, they can just say they're not showing up, even if they've got 4 years left on their deal. So that's, I mean, the ability to walk away is the best negotiating ability in the NFL. But yes, there was still some time left on Josh Allen's contract at the level that you don't see some of these other deals. And, who knows, maybe that worsened his negotiating position in terms of APY, but Josh Allen decided to go for the big total guarantees over the average per year. He ended up at $55 million. Anyway, 49ers buzz update continues. I'm going to call this evening one the buzz update. We've decided to go with the 49ers alarm update, and that's the morning update. Those have been extremely popular. If you guys have liked the 15 to 20 minute alarm update videos in the morning, let me know. And these evening videos, I had to come up with a name for them. And I figured like people are going to be at happy hour. People are going to be hanging out. I'm up here in the mountains. I do not have a buzz. I'm drinking water right now because I just got up here after landing at the airport. But why not call it the buzz update in the evening, right? So the alarm update to wake you up in the morning, typically a recording that we're going to upload, but some days we'll do it differently. But be ready for the alarm update for the mountains tomorrow morning. And then in the evening, we'll do the 49ers buzz update, and that's the one that we could typically do at about 8 p.m. I don't know. It'll just depend. 8 p.m. Pacific time, but we'll do it live. We got a question. David, how fast can you swim 40 yards? Is that being asked in the comment section? If it is, I know how fast I can swim 50 yards. Pools are 25 yards long. They're either 25 yards long or 50 meters long. So a 40 is a really irregular length, but maybe I could set up a 40. Oh my goodness. We're going to do this. Okay. I'm going to swim the 40 this off season because we got a 50-meter pool that I can go to. I could do it at Stanford and we could mark the 40-yard swim. It's not going to be a dash, the 40-yard sprint. We can mark the 40-yard marker and we'll videotape it and I'll see how fast I could swim the 40. I will say that I could swim the 50 meters off of a push somewhere around 25 seconds, maybe a little bit. Yeah. Well, it just depends on how good of shape I'm in, but it's going to be in the mid-20s. We'll put it that way. So do you think that it'll be somewhere in the low 20s that I could swim 40 yards probably? Maybe, no, high teens. You think I could break 20 seconds for a 40-yard swim? That's the question. Yes or no? Can I break 20 seconds in a 40-yard swim? I think that's what we're going to set as our goal time. And we're going to swim it around the month of June. We'll go early June, right before the off-season truly begins after minicamp. How about that? I lit the fire. Lombardi herself's not here actually right now. She's in Alabama right now. I'm in California and I had to light the fire myself. I'm ready for some questions, by the way. That's why I'm quiet right now, looking through some of these. Here's another one. Are the 49ers offensive line and defensive line coaches really that good? Or does there need to be a change in the scouting department? Does Shanahan just not care for the offensive line? I think that the 49ers early in this regime invested a lot in both the offensive and defensive line. You go back to the Mike McGlinchey pick in 2018. I mean, their first round picks for the first 4 years were all linemen, right? 2017 was Solomon Thomas, their top pick. 2018, Mike McGlinchey was their top pick. 2019, Nick Bosa was their top pick. 2020, Javon Kinlaw was their top pick. Over the past few seasons, they've gotten away from it. And I think it might be time to get back to it. And I think they're going to have to get back to it when you go to what the 49ers roster looks like right now. And I had that up a little bit earlier, and you guys saw where you had the big holes on the team. The big holes were typically on the defensive side of the ball, right up front, and then there was a hole on the offensive side of the ball at backup tackle, but you could obviously also improve tackle and probably set yourself up with a Trent Williams succession plan. I promised one more video here from the 559. So we're going to get that video right up there. Look at this. This was on our drive up. It was awesome. I'm telling you, it was a Windows screensaver looking through the crowd, looking through the clouds. And then right above us, you see a nice dually truck. That's how you know that you're not too far from Fresno. A lot of good 49ers fans in this area and a lot of beautiful scenery. All right, tomorrow there's a lot of snow out on the balcony. I showed you guys what it looks like up in the Sierra Nevada from the bird's eye view. Tomorrow we're going to do a show out in the snow, multiple shows out in the snow. We're going to do uploads from the snow. We're going to do lives from the snow, like from the balcony. Maybe we get Mount Whitney in the background. So be sure to tune in tomorrow. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, whatever you need to do. This has been a deep 49ers roster dive. It's the 49ers Buzz Update from Shaver Lake. We'll talk to you soon.